Yo, hey, what's going on everybody? Alex with you here again as usual. Thanks for dropping by for an exciting chess video. I would like to share with you guys a new chess set that I've recently acquired from RoyalChessMall, and it's the Botvinnik Flohr chess set. Now, I'm not a big history buff when it comes to chess, but those of you guys who have some historical background, in 1933, Mikhail Botvinnik and Solomon Flohr had their famous chess match, during which chess pieces closely resembling this particular chess set were used. Now, subsequently in 1935, Botvinnik and Flohr played another game, and chess pieces that were somewhat different than this particular chess set, but a little bit different, still somewhat similar, were also used. This particular chess set that I'll be showing you guys today is not an identical replica of either of the matches, but it is going to be more closely resembling the 1933 chess matches. I will show you closely in certain features like the style of the rook and also the angulation of the knight. Now, RoyalChessMall isn't the only place that you can purchase this particular chess set. You can purchase it from House of Staunton and Chess Bazaar. Now, House of Staunton and Chess Bazaar will have them slightly different than RoyalChessMall. And on House of Staunton, their chess set will actually resemble more of the 1935 chess set that was played, whereas the RoyalChessMall resembles more of the original. Me personally, like I said, I'm not very big on chess history, but what kind of attracted me to this particular chess set, it was the overall aesthetic elements of it, as I will show you guys here in just a second, particularly the style of the bishop. I believe this particular chess set retails for approximately $200 on RoyalChessMall, but RoyalChessMall was kind enough to send me this chess set for the review, so thank you RoyalChessMall for providing me this awesome chess set. And yeah, so I'm gonna pull my camera in closer, kind of show you guys what this chess set's all about, and kind of give you an idea what this chess set's like to play the games on. This particular chess set kind of reminds me of the Romanian-Hungarian chess set, maybe just like the shape of the king more so than anything. We've seen kind of this really sort of a top-heavy part that you see right over here that has characterized the Romanian-Hungarian chess set. And the overall like short stature, this is not a very tall chess set, but really well made and nicely detailed. So I'll take a closer look at some of these chess pieces. I know that on some of the forums they were talking about the shape of the rook here. You can see that the rook has this sort of a slender shape where it kind of caves in towards the middle. The original 1933 rook that was being used in the Flohr Botvinnik game had a more of a straight profile where the middle part wasn't concave like this. The knight here, I love it. It's got a really cool curvature to sort of the belly. Now, the original knight was similar in many respects to this knight, but the curvature of the belly that you see here wasn't as intense on the original knight. There's not a whole lot of details in the face as you see here. The bishop's really quite cool in my opinion. We haven't really seen bishops that are elongated to such an extent. We've seen bishops of all kinds of different shapes, but this one's just, in my opinion, is really nice. I believe the Chess Empire, which is another store that I don't think I've ever ordered from them, but they have a chess set called the Shkolnik chess set, which would translate as student. And their bishops are kind of very similar to this, to where the middle portion actually extends right down to the middle part. Whereas normally in bishops we see that the rings actually are like 2/3 of the way up on the bishop. But really cool. As you see here, there's no cut through the bishop. So it's a nice aesthetic bishop that actually height-wise sits nicely between the height of the queen and the knight, as you see here. The queen is also really quite nicely made. The top portion is somewhat slim and slender, that closely resembles the shape of the king that's right next to it. It's got those spikes as we usually see with most of the queens, right over here at the top. But the top portion, as you see here, is somewhat narrow, so I like it. I know that the decision process was originally stemming from the 1933 game, but it looks cool even for those of you guys who don't really care much for the history aspect of it. Just simply from an aesthetic standpoint, looks like a really nice queen. Then moving on, we've got the king. The king, similarly, like I said, it looks kind of interesting, more of like the Hungarian Romanian king here. Starting off at the very top, you see a finial that's not super detailed, somewhat large, that sits on top of that little base there. And then we have the top part of the king, separated by several rings here towards the middle, with the biggest ring being the same as we see on the other chess pieces. The queen and the bishops have a similar ring design. And then kind of tapering off here to somewhat of a slender body that's relatively short for a king. And then falling down into this base. We'll pull the king away and take a look at the pawn here. The pawn is really nicely proportioned. The top part is relatively big, easy to hold. Surprisingly, the pawns are nicely weighted. I'm going to give you guys the weight of these pieces here in just a minute, but I know I do have somewhat a little bit of a more harsh light conditions right over here, but it's always nice to have the light of day illuminating the chess pieces, especially the dark side, because a lot of times when that happens, we can a lot more easily see the grain within these chess pieces. And the grain here is really quite well visible and looks very, very nice. Intentionally, these chess pieces, you might say, well, you know, the knight doesn't look as detailed, maybe not my thing, but this is the way that originally the knight was developed to look like this. So really quite cool. Moving on, we've got the bishop here. Also, the grain kind of stands out really nicely. Super nice. I believe, now don't quote me on this, that the chess set that we see here is golden rosewood and boxwood. Oh, there we go. Here's the dark king. Beautiful queen. And then lastly, there's the pawns. Alrighty, here's a little bit of a closer look real quick. Yeah, so these are the kings, the light king and the dark king. Like I said before, this particular chess set, in my opinion, has been really well made. It's a quality chess set. You'll definitely be very happy with this chess set if you consider getting it for quality reasons as well as for aesthetic reasons, in my opinion. If we compare this particular design to what we would sort of expect as far as Staunton-like design here, we can definitely see that there's a big difference between the overall shape on a Staunton-like design. And this is a 3.625-inch King Cook chess set from House of Staunton. And we see that the finial here is substantially bigger. And then the top portion here, although not a lot wider, is definitely a lot taller, as you can see, which pushes effectively these rings that separate the body from the top here considerably more downward, which in my opinion is really cool. I mean, yes, we are sort of going away from the original Staunton design, but we're creating something that's equally aesthetic, especially for those who appreciate chess sets for their aesthetic reasons. The underside here has a really nice sort of this green, but not the bright green, but more of that sort of a kind of a bluish green felt. I feel like a lot of the chess sets, when the felt's a little bit more blue, it's nice, a little bit thicker, kind of differentiate themselves between some of the less expensive or maybe slightly lower quality chess sets. So we know this is a well-made chess set top to bottom. As far as the weight of this particular chess set here, the light king weighs at 56 grams, so it's not light for sure. And then the dark weighs at 58, so very close, only 2 gram difference. Very nice. It feels nice and heavy. It feels really balanced. See how like it doesn't even wobble that much when I put it It just kind of gives you guys an idea. I think this one does the same thing. This one doesn't even want to do that. Alrighty, moving on to the queens. We can see that there's definitely a height difference here, which we would expect. Most of the chess sets, queens are going to be somewhat shorter. We've seen some chess sets where the queen and the king were almost similar in height. If you've seen my Nubel German chess set, that was kind of somewhat the case. The queen and the king were both really squatty, and they were kind of very similar. But yeah, here's the height difference, and then we're gonna kind of put the king aside here to take a closer look at the queens, and also compare them to the queen from the Cook chess set. Once again, similarly to the shape of the king, we have the queen's top part here kind of being elongated a little bit more than what we see with the Cook chess set here. The spikes on the top are also kind of tucked in slightly. I hope you guys can see this. And the top portion actually extends more upwards, so that whole part kind of takes up a large portion of the piece, pushing these rings down just like we've seen with the king, and then kind of leaving us with somewhat of a short body. The base is also really nice and wide and stable. In fact, one of the things that I've noticed with this chess set is all the pieces were really stable, including the pawns. But it's kind of made in a similar way. If we tip this forward, I don't know if my camera will focus, and just kind of show you guys the base. All of the bases of these chess pieces have these subsequent like 3 rings. We have the ring here, ring here, here. So it kind of doesn't just have that sort of a one ring situation like here. It provides us with an extra bit of a detail that you see right over here. And like I said, I hope my camera can focus on these little details, considering the light's kind of funky. Weight wise, the light queen is going to be at 57 grams, 56. And the dark queen is at 51. So a little bit of a weight difference here, not too much. But still, as we can see, that the queens, as far as the weight of them, are very similar to the weight of the kings, which is nice to see. Sometimes we'll see a situation where, you know, the chess king will actually weigh a certain amount, and then the rest of the pieces will have a steep drop off to where the rest of the pieces are not as heavy. Because on paper, a lot of times, all the main characteristics of the chess sets are basically stemming from the king. The height, the weight, everything else just kind of, you know, we can just write it off. Moving on, we've got the bishops. And like I said, yeah, somewhat shorter, not terribly shorter. Some people might argue and say they'd like to see a bishop that'd be a little bit shorter. But then if we make the bishop shorter, then the whole sort of elongated feel of the bishop would be diminished. I feel like they stretched it out to the point probably beyond which then people would start complaining that it's too high, maybe as if it gets closer to the height of the queen. But here I feel like they made a pretty good decision as far as dropping it a little bit, and just looks overall really just interesting. It looks different. So in comparison to like a regular Staunton, or, you know, somewhat of a normal Staunton bishop here, we definitely see there's a big difference in aesthetic design here. It's very elongated, like almost like a bullet on the top here. Whereas here we oftentimes see somewhat of a kind of a fatter top, and then about 2/3 of the way up. In some bishops it's 2/3 of the way up. I'd probably say in this case it's maybe 60% of the way up, maybe 65. But here these rings drop almost down to about 52 or something, 53% of the top. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's like it's right down in the middle. Kind of makes it very interesting. I mean, both bishops handle similarly. It's just that it's kind of, when you're picking it up, it feels a little bit different. It's still really cool. The bishops is really the only reason why I consider getting this chess set, because I thought the bishops were like the coolest thing ever. Bishops weigh in. The light bishop weighs in at 45 grams, so pretty substantial for a bishop. And the dark bishop in this case weighs at 40 grams. So both of which feel nice and stable. They don't really rock or anything, and they don't really wobble too much. Knights have somewhat of a kind of a belly here. If we switch the knight off to the side, we see that we have a somewhat of a broad head of the knight here. It's not super slender, and in fact, at the very top here, like the very front, it actually, the nostrils and all, it sort of even gets a little bit more wider. We have this sort of an open mouth design. Now, in this particular chess set, like I said before, it resembles more of the 1933 chess match between Flohr and Botvinnik, but the 1935 reproduction chess set on House of Staunton, the knight will look a little bit different. The belly is going to be more tucked in, and I think the mouth is a little bit more open. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about like the mouth of the knight being too open. I've seen in some cases where the mouth is just like this bottom jaw here just drops down, and I really don't know how I feel about it. In some cases, I like the knight to have like closed mouth altogether. In some cases, I feel like it's sort of a nice thing to be able to see the teeth, but when you have the jaw that's dropped all the way down like it was broken, it's just kind of looks weird in my opinion. Like I said, everybody has their own opinion. It's just wanted to share with you guys. As far as the design characteristics, you see the face here. We've got sort of this cut out eyes. Nothing too major, but still, I think that it's been made pretty well. On the very top here, we have this sort of a line that runs from the top portion down right in the middle. Kind of gives that more of a streamlined look. If we compare these particular knights to a Staunton, more of a Staunton-like look, we see that here the belly sort of starts off right at the base of the neck, and it just kind of doesn't really extend too far out beyond. So it's not like it's slim here at the top and then gets wide here at the bottom. Whereas in this case, we see that it starts off with the neck being somewhat narrow, and then it really extends out into this sort of a beer belly like look, which is pretty cool, because what happens is by doing that aesthetically, it sort of creates to where the head isn't fused to the rest of the body like this, but actually has its own sort of a feel to it. I know a lot of people are very particular about their knights and which knights they like and which ones they don't, and a lot of people will actually choose chess sets simply based on the aesthetic elements of the knight, and I don't disagree with those people. I think that's definitely a big consideration for when you're choosing a chess set. How the knight looks can make your decision for you, basically. So a lot of people will sort of steer towards more of the Staunton-like knight that we see here, but some people might like something different, like this particular chess set. Weight-wise, the light knight weighs in at 39 grams. And the dark knight weighs in at 43 grams. So far we've seen that most of these chess pieces are going to be somewhere in the range between 40 to 60 grams. So there's not a lot of deviation, which is good to see. When it comes to the rooks, sometimes in the Staunton-like design that we see, for example, right over here, we will have this sort of a typical shape where we have the bottom part, and then it'll become slender. From the base, it'll kind of become a little more slender, go relatively straight up, and then come up and sort of have at the very, very end on the top here, it'll diverge out a little bit, kind of what we see here, into either a shallow depth part here that we see, or sometimes a little bit deeper. In this particular design here, we see that the bottom part, although it's there, it really isn't that much wider than the rest of the rook, and there's not a whole lot of sort of convergence that's going on here. It's already relatively wide at the bottom, but doesn't really get super thin here towards the middle. I know the 1935 chess set that's sold on the House of Staunton, it is more slender here towards the middle, and what happens is it kind of starts off somewhat wide, then it becomes a lot more slender, and then it, like about halfway up, it sort of diverges out into a similar width top, which is different from here, because here we actually see it's becomes slender pretty quick, and then it continues being slender all the way until almost the very top. But here we see that the most slender portion is actually about halfway down, and the divergence is about similar as far as the angle. So yeah, I like these particular rooks. They look easy to handle as they are. They're nice and stable. As far as the weight of the rooks, 50 grams for the light rook, so a little bit heavier, and 53 grams for the dark rook. So nice heavy pieces. They feel very nice, robust, and easy to handle. Compared to the rook, the pawns are going to be a little bit shorter, but still they're actually really good size for this particular chess set, and really good size overall for as far as pawns go. I feel like they're made to where the top is easy to grab. They are somewhat on the weighty side, but not terribly weighty, and very well balanced. So this whole chess set, in fact, I feel like could easily be played with on pretty much any chessboard that you want to play it on. It just feels nice and stable overall. So if we put these pawns to comparison, we can see that the Staunton pawn actually has a little bit more of a body here, and once again it's a little bit more slender. The top portion of this Cook chess set's a little bit smaller. I feel like if you're playing like blitz games or rapid games even, a bigger ball at the very top might be a little bit easier for some people to grab. Some of these more intricate chess sets, especially for older people, like I know that some people that might have a little bit of arthritis in their hands, if a pawn is a little bit bigger like this, it is easier to grab one, because at a certain point, once you start contracting your fingers together, if the chess piece is a little bit smaller, it might just be easier to grab a bigger piece like this, because then the inflammation in the fingers isn't as pronounced when you're playing. But that's just my theory about it. As far as the pawn weight for the light pawn, it's at 34 grams. 34 grams. I told you guys these feel nice and stable and heavy. And 36 grams for the dark one. We don't usually see pawns on this sort of a heavier side, so that's really cool to see. That's going to be something that some of the people going to be really excited out there, who are always sort of complaining about the pawns being a little too light. 36, 34 grams, that's above 30 grams, definitely very stable, as you can see. They don't move around that much. I think that extra bit of weight really helps with the stability. Yeah, so as we've seen with this particular chess set, although it might be somewhat shorter in stature, it's still a really nice, stable, well-made, and high-quality chess set that I feel like, in my opinion, would be a really fine addition to anybody's chess collection, especially those that are more interested in acquiring the chess sets that represent some part of the chess history, like for example the Botvinnik chess set or the Reykjavik, the Morphy chess set. You know, this one might definitely be. Now 1933 is definitely a long time ago, so that's like 90 years ago, and I know some chess collectors, like some high-end chess collectors, might say, well, this isn't the original chess set, it's a reproduction. But nowadays it's kind of like, well, you're not really going to probably have much luck acquiring the original chess sets from 90 years ago. And if you did, you would probably spend a considerable amount of money more than what this particular chess set has cost. And also, a 90-year-old chess set is probably going to have the wood already somewhat withered away and maybe a little bit more brittle by this time. Whereas if you want to purchase a piece of history, like in this case, for a fraction of the money that it would cost you to obtain the original one, then this will be a really nice balance, being part of the chess history. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video as usual. Today's my dad's birthday, so I wish him a happy birthday. He usually watches my videos. And tomorrow will actually be my 3 years since I posted the very first chess video on my channel. So I might or might not do a quick take about that and talk basically about my journey through my chess channel. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good day, have a great week, Stay safe, everybody. Play some more chess, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.